When you hear the name Medusa, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For pretty much all of us, it's that classic terrifying image, right? A woman with a head full of snakes. But the real story of this legendary figure is so much more complicated and, honestly, way more fascinating than we've been led to believe.
So yeah, if you think you've got her all figured out, you might want to think again. Her identity has been twisted and reshaped for thousands of years. In fact, the Medusa we all picture today, she's a far cry from the one the ancient Greeks were originally talking about. So, let's unravel this tangled story, shall we? We're going to explore how she went from being this terrifying monster into something else entirely.
At the very heart of her story are these two completely conflicting identities. On one hand, you've got the ultimate monster, a creature whose gaze literally turns men to stone. But on the other hand, she's seen as a tragic victim, punished for a crime that was committed against her. So, which one is it? Let's dive in.
Okay, first, let's start with the classic image, the one that's been haunting our imaginations for centuries, Medusa, the fearsome creature from the legends.
In the earliest Greek myths, this is exactly who she was. No complicated backstory. She was a Gorgon, one of 3 sisters, and she was born so monstrously hideous that just one look at her face would turn you to solid rock.
Now, here's what's really interesting about this original version. Medusa wasn't even the main character in her own story. Not even close. Her entire purpose was just to be a scary obstacle, like the final boss in a video game for some great male hero to defeat.
And this really shows you her place in that world. She was one of 3 Gorgon sisters, daughters of these ancient sea gods. But, and this is the crucial part, her 2 sisters, Stheno and Euryale, were immortal. Medusa was the only one who could be killed. And that one little fact, her mortality, sets the whole stage for our hero, Perseus. He gets sent on this impossible mission, bring back Medusa's head. The gods help him out, of course. He gets a mirrored shield from Athena, winged sandals from Hermes, the whole deal. He finds Medusa sleeping, chops off her head while only looking at her reflection, and boom, he's out of there. Her head, which still has its powers, becomes his weapon before he finally gives it to the goddess Athena to put on her shield. But then, centuries later, the story takes this massive, dramatic turn, and we have the Roman poet Ovid to thank for it. He took the old myth and gave it this tragic, deeply human backstory that changed everything.
This one idea right here is the game changer. Suddenly, Medusa isn't a monster born from monstrous parents anymore. No, she was once human, and she was once beautiful.
So in Ovid's telling, Medusa was this lovely young woman, a priestess of Athena. But the sea god, Poseidon, assaulted her inside Athena's own sacred temple. Now, you'd think Athena would punish Poseidon, right? Nope. Instead, she unleashes all her fury on Medusa, the victim. She curses her, transforming her famous, beautiful hair into a nest of snakes and making her face so hideous it would turn men to stone. The key thing here is her monstrosity becomes a punishment, not something she was born with.
And you can actually watch this shift happen in the art. The earliest stuff, she's grotesque, terrifying. But by the 5th century BC, even before Ovid wrote his version, poets and artists were already starting to paint her as beautiful and tragic. Ovid's story just sealed the deal, cementing this new, sympathetic vision of Medusa for centuries to come.
Okay, now let's fast forward, way forward, to the 20th and 21st centuries. This is where Medusa's story gets reinterpreted all over again. She goes from monster to victim, and now to a powerful feminist icon.
Thinkers like Helen Sixtus came along and just flipped the old narrative on its head. They asked, what if her gaze wasn't a curse, but a weapon? What if her monstrosity was just how men saw female power and desire? Sixtus basically says, look her right in the eye. You won't see a monster. You'll see a powerful, defiant woman.
And this interpretation feels incredibly relevant, doesn't it? As Elizabeth Johnston points out, the image of Medusa just keeps popping up whenever powerful women are seen as threatening. She's become this go-to symbol for what happens when female authority gets demonized. So in this new light, Medusa embodies so much. She's a symbol of righteous female rage against injustice. Her story is like the original textbook case of victim blaming, which makes her a hugely powerful figure for the #MeToo movement. You could even say she's become the original nasty woman, a protector whose terrifying face guards against anyone who would do harm.
So it's really no surprise that her image is just everywhere in our culture, representing all of these different, complicated ideas all at once. It seems like we just can't look away from her.
You can find her right in the center of the flag of Sicily. There, she's not a monster. She's a symbol of protection, a guardian of the island.
She's the logo for the fashion giant Versace, chosen specifically because of that alluring, captivating, and deadly beauty.
Contemporary artists have totally reclaimed her image to talk about modern injustices, especially in powerful artworks created in response to the #MeToo movement.
And then there's one of the most powerful reversals of all, Luciano Garbati's sculpture. It flips the entire myth upside down. In this version, a calm, resolute Medusa is the one standing there, holding the severed head of her attacker, Perseus. The victim becomes the victor.
So, from monster to victim to icon, Medusa's been all of these things. Her story shifting and changing over time really forces us to ask a bigger question. When we create our monsters, and when we choose to reimagine them, what are we really saying about ourselves?